Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guests today are Steve Gill and Linda Peek-Schatt. They are talking to us about presidential politics and what another crazy, strange week it's been and looks to be ahead. Steve, you are a Cruz delegate. I have a question to ask. There's been a lot of comment about how well Cruz has gone around the country and kind of found some people to put into different delegate slots. Not so much yours. You actually won yours in the statewide vote here in Tennessee, but in other states they were selected later at party conventions and meetings and things like that, and therefore when you get to the second ballot, if we get there, or the third, it's time for them to be able to change maybe to a Cruz delegate, even though when they get there they have to be a Trump delegate. You probably know a good number of people that are in the delegation here in Tennessee. You're already going to vote for Ted Cruz on the first ballot. How many more people are going to join you in your delegation when you get to the third ballot? Because Tennessee has to stay with the person they're delegated to for the first two ballots.
Ted Cruz has actually looked at the rules state by state, which the Donald Trump team apparently did not do. That a lot of these folks were elected at conventions a year ago before, frankly, Cruz or Trump or anybody was in. So the delegation pool was selected a long time ago, and what Cruz has done in many of these states is go in and target folks that are eligible to be elected now as Cruz or Trump delegates and make sure that he's putting in people that will be for him on that second or third ballot. Tennessee is very interesting because, again, as you point out, while some of us were elected, the state party did pick about 16 delegates, and they placed people in the Cruz delegation and the Rubio delegation and in the Trump delegation who were not and are not for those folks. At least two people who are on as Trump delegates have said on Facebook they will never vote for Trump. You have Susan Richardson Williams, who is a Cruz delegate who ran as a Bush delegate. Others are out there that are clearly not for these candidates in that second, third, or fourth round. Tennessee's interesting, though. You're right. It does say that the first two rounds you were bound. But it also says that as long as your candidate has 20% of the delegates, you have to keep voting for them. So I think Trump and Cruz delegates are bound a lot longer than the pundits have been expecting. So
when we get down to a second or third ballot in this, if we get that long, maybe we'll go more than that. I mean, the Democrats one time back in the 20s had like 125. So are we looking for a long slog here? I mean, if we don't get it on the first ballot, if nobody gets it on the first ballot, right now it looks only like Donald Trump can do that. Could we be there for a while, and how does that work? Because nobody's ever seen anything quite like that.
That's what I'm saying. We're off the edge of the map here. I think what you're going to see is, I believe that Trump will show up, 70 to 100 short of the 1237 he needs at the Republican convention. The question is of the 300 unbound delegates, and it may include Rubio delegates, because Rubio has suspended his campaign to keep raising money under the Federal Election Commission rules. But the Republican National Committee rules actually specify that if you suspend your campaign, your delegates are freed under the convention rules. So actually all of Rubio's and all of Carson's delegates may be free already, which means Trump has 300, 400 people he can go get that 70 or 100 from. If he does that, he wins on the first ballot. If he doesn't, those Trojan horse Trump delegates start to cause him a problem, and then we could be in for a long slog.
But Paul Manafort, his new campaign manager, has said that he's going to spend whatever it takes to win on the first ballot. And I think because they've hired him and other people, they are quickly learning the rules, and they're quickly figuring out who they can turn. But the other thing Manafort said this week.
Well, I was going to ask you, so there's an AP story about that's very interesting, including a tape the AP has from that about what Manafort said in a private meeting.
That's
Talk
right.
about that.
Well, he told a private meeting of Republicans in Florida that the persona they were seeing, the performance they were seeing from Donald Trump was just that, a performance on the stump, and that he was much different in person, and basically was saying he's putting on a show, but he'll be somebody that we can deal with.
So pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Steve, what do the Cruz people do with that they haven't already done? They basically already said he doesn't believe what he says.
I think it's causing doubt among those who are Trump delegates and may be committed. More importantly, I think it's going to cause some doubt among those who are the unbridled. They can flip at the end, whether it's coming out in favor of the transgender bathroom open policies, whether it's some of the things he said about abortion this week, the Manafort comments. He is hurting himself with the folks that are supposedly on his side right now, and that may cause him more trouble.
Now, Steve, there are some people who are supporting Ted Cruz to stop Donald Trump, but once Donald Trump is stopped, they're probably not for Ted Cruz. What does Ted Cruz do to build up his likability within the party? Because that seems to be where he has a problem, particularly among the leadership. They just don't like Ted Cruz.
If they do not change the convention rules, at the end of the day, the two choices when you get there are only going to be Donald Trump or Ted Cruz. And a lot of folks are going to have to decide, do they hate Ted Cruz more than they fear Donald Trump? I'm not sure that's the best choice people could ask for, but those are going to be the two choices. One of those two men will be the Republican nominee.
Linda, what do the Democrats do? Would it be a dream ticket or a fusion ticket to put Sanders and Clinton on the same ballot, or is that just talking crazy and that wouldn't work personally or politically very well?
I think the likelihood of that happening is slim to nothing. Slim to zero.
If the sun came up in the west tomorrow morning.
I believe that the vitriol, as Steve called it, that happened during the New York primary has really caused some wounds in the Clinton camp and some anger, and she's going to be, I believe, she's going to play the statesman role. She's not going to call him out, but she is going to continue to point out that most of what he's suggesting is a vision that cannot be accomplished and that he is being unrealistic.
Steve, there's usually delegates are fairly anonymous on an individual basis, but next week in Pennsylvania, there's some 30-odd delegates who are going to be elected on the Republican side that are being elected as uncommitted. Now, some of them I think are already out there announcing what they're going to do, but as close as this may be after we get past California, where Trump is maybe within 100, maybe 50 delegates, something like that, these people may become some of the more prominent people in the news all the time. I mean, what they do and what they say and think and where they go if they're on the Trump plane, this sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, suddenly these get to be major political players, and nobody knows who they are.
And there have been movies about, like there was one guy missing, I think a Kevin Costner movie years ago, and all the highlight that was on them. If Trump is within 70 to 100 votes, I think he can cobble together those undeclared delegates to get there.
But there'll be no concession like we're putting on a golf course. They're not going to say, well, sit
the rules are wide open. It is Wild West, and it's going to be crazy season. I do think Linda's right that who you pick as a VP, though, you pick for one reason and one reason only: who can get me to the White House. And Hillary will pick who is the person who as VP gets me there. I don't think it's going to be Bernie. And for Donald Trump, it may not be to make peace and love each other. It's going to be who can get me to the White House. That is the only reason you pick a VP.
Steve Gill and Linda Peek-Schaap are our guests here on Inside Politics. We're talking 2016 presidential politics. Back to continue that conversation and maybe more about the VP after this break.